Hi and welcome back to Selena's Table and our little Aussie homestead. Today I'm going to be canning all those beetroot that we harvested from the garden. I'm going to make all of them into pickled beetroot, and the recipe can be found in the Ball Home Preserving book. It looks like this. I got it off Amazon. You should be able to as well. And we're just going to follow this recipe as it's written for all of our beetroot. In this jar that I'm using now, it's full of pickling spices that I mixed together the last time I did some pickled vegetables. When you're doing home canning, you need to make sure you're using the correct type of jars. Today we're only water bath canning, so it's not as important as when you are pressure canning. But these jars are made to withstand both types of canning. I have pre-sterilized these, run them through a hot dishwasher that was clean. They are ready to go. Just before I actually bottle up my beetroot, I will just put some boiling water in them just to clean them again and to warm the jar, because by the time I'm filling them with beetroot, they need to be re-warmed. So I'm just finishing up this pickling brine, putting it all together in this pot so that we can get it warming and the sugar inside of it dissolved. The pickling brine is now on the stove, it's heating up, so I'm going to start preparing the beetroot. I'm going to chop off all the leafy greens. I'm actually inspecting them because some of these will be dehydrated, the rest will end up in the compost. I leave the long taproot intact because it helps the beetroot to retain its colour and not leach too much colour when it is cooking. As I'm preparing these beetroot, I'm also grouping them according to size. The small ones I will end up bottling whole, and the larger ones I'm just going to group, and then I'll end up slicing most of these. Some of them will become wedges, but most of them will be sliced. I am going to pre-cook these in just some water for about 20 minutes, but until they're just tender. I'm going to do the small ones in a small pot and the rest of them in a large pot, only because they'll take different amounts of time to come to the correct tenderness. Here we have some of the beetroot tops in the dehydrator and some chili flakes. Now that the beetroot are just tender, we don't want them overcooked, we just want them tender. These ones are ready, so I'm going to strain them, let them cool slightly before peeling them. I'm wearing these gloves here because I don't want to be completely stained with the beetroot. I did start off using my peeler, but I found that most of the beetroot, just by squeezing and giving a gentle rub, the skins actually came off really easily. So once they're peeled, I'm pulling off also, I'm cutting off the taproot now and peeling and then popping them in their jars ready to be topped with hot brine. Now that my jars are full of beetroot, I have left about a 1-inch headspace above the beetroot. I've just got the strainer in this funnel and I'm going to pour my brine through that and top up to that same 1-inch headspace of brine. When it's time to add the canning lids, you need to remove the air bubbles from the jar first. There's a special tool, or you can just use a chopstick like I do. However, at the beginning here I did forget to do that, but we didn't have any problems. So I'm using a clean paper towel and I'm getting some vinegar on that, and I'm just wiping the top of each of my jars, cleaning it with that vinegar paper towel. And I also vinegar the rim of my flat lid before putting on the lid and the ring. The ring is just fingertip tightness, so we don't want to put it on really tight, just tight enough that it's secure. It's called fingertip tightness. I will add that I did put my canner on the heat with water in it already. Prior to doing any of this, the water's been heating up in my canner. So you want to add your hot liquid in the hot bottles and those hot bottles into the hot canning liquid, and then you want to make sure that the water comes right up to the top before we let it come back up to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, we need to let it sit there for 30 minutes, I believe is what was in the recipe, before we continue. Once the processing time is complete, you need to turn off the canner and then let the temperature come back down. Let it sit for 5 minutes before you remove your jars. You then set them onto a towel and leave them for 24 hours. You do not disturb these jars, do not take off the rings, just leave them be for 24 hours before then moving on to taking the rings off, cleaning them up and labeling. I did want to add that we don't store our beetroot with the lid, the canning ring on. We store them without the canning ring, and we do test the jars before we do store them to make sure that they have sealed correctly. And you can lift it via the rim, and if it doesn't fall off, it is sealed. Thank you for spending time with me today as we canned up our fresh beetroot from the garden. If you liked this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already.